a person lost everything, and we call it illegal migration. It's not fair. We're going to read into this piece from Byline Times, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from Byline Times with this headline of a person lost everything and we call it illegal migration. It's not fair. The latest episode of the Media Storm podcast focuses on more positive narratives around refugees that journalists could disseminate and why they selectively choose not to. Guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button and share this across social media so others are notified of this video. So this is an interesting piece that we're going to be reading from Byline Times here. And I do recommend checking out the Media Storm podcast. It's a very interesting podcast, definitely, for sure. If I remember, I'll put a link in the description for you guys to have a look if you want to do it on there. It's not really that hard to find it on wherever you get your podcast from. You just type in the name and it will come up under Byline Times, you guys. And I will say, obviously, that this headline here, I really, really want to emphasize something to people. You know, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of hatred, and there's a lot of disinformation, misinformation, if you want to call it, about migration, about immigrants, about people who travel from A to B and whatnot, about people who leave countries of origins and who don't stay in the first country that they go in because for some reason that's what they should do. They should stay where they come from, or they should be allowed. They shouldn't be allowed to choose where they want to go, sort of thing, and be up to make a life of their own. and I have this question that I want to put to those people who think that they shouldn't be allowed to do all these things. What if someone told you, you know, you wanted to go a certain place, right? Let's say you wanted to go on you have a holiday trip planned, right? You want to go to a holiday. Let's say you wanted to go to Ibiza or whatever. Let's just hypothetically, right? And someone who has no connection to you, nothing to do with you, says you shouldn't go there. You're not allowed to go there. You're not from Ibiza. You're from the UK. You're not allowed to go there. You would completely and rightfully you would dismiss that, wouldn't you? And you would just carry on. Now, think about this. Think about someone who has absolutely nothing, who has lost everything. Yeah? I always say this premise of trying to put yourself in the shoes of someone else. Yeah, because the only way you can understand people is by trying to put yourself in the shoes of others. I try not to avoid falling into the traps of some people in the comments who try to provoke me into saying something bad about them. I try not to, I say. But I want you to try doing that, because everyone's life is different. Everybody has different experiences about what it was like growing up in their areas and whatnot. And some people move from place to places. Have you all stayed in the same home that you've been in? No, you've moved. Or shall we say you've migrated from one town to another, or that you've moved out of your parents, you've migrated out of your family home to migrate to somewhere. But if you just think about that person or people who have lost absolutely everything, we can look at all the examples, the Middle East, what's happening in Sudan, what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Myanmar, and the war in Ukraine. Many people who have fled homes, fled their homes, fled their livelihoods, fled their communities, and have lost everything. Some of them lost their loved ones. Some of them have no family at all, or some may have connections to some family members, maybe here or whatnot and there. Now imagine you being completely alone in the world, and that your only family or relative or contact was somebody in the UK. And you had a problem with that person wanting to come to the UK simply because this person is not British. Doesn't that make you feel a little bit racist in your head? that somebody who has lost completely everything, that shouldn't be entitled to a second chance in life? Are you not somebody that believes in people that have second chances? I believe people deserve second chances in life. Now, before we go any further, I'm not saying we should open the doors for all migrants. Absolutely not. But let's be very clear here. Migration is something that needs to be controlled. Absolutely. I don't think any of us are arguing that. But we are a multicultural country. I know certain people don't like that term. But it's a fundamental fact. That's what the United Kingdom is, a multicultural country. We have lots of fascinating, amazing people who have come, contributed and worked in our society and have made homes here for us. Some of these people who lost absolutely everything and are now making something of themselves here and are contributing back into our economy for it. Why do you hate these people? Is it because of your own experiences? Or is it because of what someone in a Facebook group told you? Is it because of what someone on a YouTube, like me talking to you now? Is it because of what I'm telling you or what someone online has told you? Or is it because of what a politician has told you? Is it because of what statistics have you seen? Or is it a number of factors that you couldn't possibly comprehend of why you feel about migrants? I really want to know why you feel about these people, why you feel the way you feel about them. I want to understand, because obviously every life is different, everybody's lives are different, but I really want to understand why you are so against people who have lost everything to come and work and be a part of our society. I really want to understand that. Just look at this headline, okay? A person lost everything, and we call it illegal migration. Now, Canvas here, there's no such thing as illegal migration, but just on that, they're treated like complete. We have this rhetoric that people have, and we treat them indifferently simply because they're not British, because they're not white, because they don't speak our language, and they're willing to learn our language, that they're willing to contribute, that they're willing to be a part of our society. And yet we have a problem with that. And I can already see this comment coming up before I even start on this article, where someone's going to say, "But Regan, are you dumb? We don't have any houses. We're full." And it's like, well then, I have a question for you. If you want a full stop in immigration, let me ask you something then. Are you prepared to pay, out of taxpayer money, are you prepared to help fix these homes where these people come from? Are you prepared, out of your taxpayer money, prepared to help around the world to do more to ensure that we have less global migration? And if your answer is no, then you need to stop complaining. Because let me put this another example, right? Someone's house is on fire, right? What's your immediate reaction? Yeah, you're living next door or you're across the road from them. Yeah, someone's house is on fire. What's your immediate reaction? Yeah? They're just going to sit in their house? You're just going to call the fire department and let them deal with it? And then when that person's house is all burnt down, they can't go back and live in it with their family. So where are they going to go? They're going to try to go to another house to stay in. But the problem is that no one wants to help rebuild that house that's been burnt down. And this is the analogy here. When I look at Sudan, when I look at some of the other countries around the world, we're not willing to do enough to help rebuild their homes and their lives. And if we're not prepared to put our hands in our pockets and help these people who are destitute around the world, not only will we always have migration, we will always have high levels of migration. You cannot stop migration, but we can reduce it if, on an international scale, we're all willing to play play our part in doing so to help rebuild these homes, rebuild these lives, rebuild these nations. But it takes international cooperation. And your kind of rhetoric of just simply pulling up a wall and a brick, it's not going to fix the problem. It's not going to fix that person's house who's burnt down. It's not going to fix that person who's lost everything. And you can scream and shout how much it's not your problem. Well, the problem you need to understand is that we all have one planet and we all have to live on it. And guess what? We all have to share it. And that, unfortunately, is the grim reality of it. Shall I read this then? Or shall I keep going? This week we saw World Refugee Day, designated by the United Nations to honour people who have been forced to flee around the globe. The first day was held globally in 2001 to mark the 50th anniversary of the 1951 Convention on the Status of Refugees, which defines the term refugee and sets international standards for their protections. Their protections are very important. On the latter, it's easy to see the ways in which government has failed. On the Rwanda deportation bill, for example, on the former, that it's media that fails time and time again. The definition of a refugee is someone who is unable or unwilling to return to their country of origin, owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted or for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group or political opinion. So because of these reasons of why some people cannot return to their homes, but yet you still have a problem with that. I always say, put yourself in someone else's shoes to try and understand why they do what they do, and don't just jump to conclusions. But this is not the definition used by media outlets who reserve the term refugee for people whose request for asylum has been approved by a host country. Instead, the media band-aids around the terms such as migrant, asylum seeker, or illegal immigration. The least they use term is people. And this is the thing. Absolutely right before I go any further. People. They're humans. Just like you and I. They're humans. They are people. You see them indifferently because they're not British or they're not white. But they are people. And everybody deserves a fair crack at life. And we should stop calling them these names and try to call them with a bit more respect and dignity, considering the terrors and the troubles that some of these people go through. There is no illegal migration because people are forced to flee. They don't choose to come for a better life. They come for safety. Now, some people do come to UK for a better life. Some people come for, like, for example, people come to our universities because they want to get the best education they possibly can. Just wanted to put that in there as well. Do you have a problem with people from different nationalities and whatnot coming to the UK to work and study as well? If they give their money? Answers on a postcard, please. Zara Shahina, a prominent Afghan journalist and newsreader, fled to the UK following the Taliban's rise to power in August 2021. She told the latest episode of the Media Storm podcast about the huge gap in empathy in the reporting of those who have been forced out of their homelands. A person lost everything, she said, and we call it illegal migration. It's not fair. Indeed, the rampant dehumanization of refugees in our media has led to desalinization so extensively that a story about a Greek Coast Guard deliberately throwing people seeking asylum into the Mediterranean Sea to their deaths barely makes a sound. A cow hit by a police car generates more concern. So what is behind this? Well, it's called the media. The media want to paint a narrative. Excuse me, a picture, or will. That's what they want to do. Hence the need, why I've always said on this channel, we need media reform. A potent cocktail of scapegoating and racism underpins dehumanization. When Russia invaded Ukraine, I didn't remember any mainstream media, or any outlet, or even any tabloid or other, labeling Ukrainians as illegal migrants, or illegal immigrants, asylum seekers. Oshra Gushris, a former dentist and political activist who fled Egypt after a military coup in 2013, is now the editor-in-chief of Egypt Watch in the UK, told MediaStorm. He pointed to a word that so often follows refugees or migrants in the UK media: crisis. Describing people as a crisis is not fair. Can we talk about economic crisis? We can talk about border crisis. We can talk about inflation crisis, but we can't label people as a crisis. I describe this as a racist label. He's not wrong. A humanitarian crisis is typically defined as an event that critically threatens the health, safety, security and well-being of a community. Do we not see near large amounts of migrations and refugees? Do we not see that as a humanitarian crisis? Do we not? It is telling us, in most cases, that when our media describes the refugee crisis, the crisis seems to be referring is to not the millions of people being forced out of their homes, but the tens of thousands trying to come to ours. As Shahina pointed out, the term crisis should be highlighting the needs that refugees need help. They need support. Instead, the creation of the crisis is placed solely on the people trying to cross borders, with responsibilities lifted off the creators of the border policies. This summed up in Garish's impassionate plea to listeners on this week's Media Storm. A refugee is not your enemy. Now, people like Nigel Farage want you to believe that they are your enemy. Remember, the rich and the wealthy want you to point your finger elsewhere and not at them, who is taking money out of your wallet behind you. The enemy is the regime that makes this refugee. The mainstream media here need to understand this. Refugees did not cause the inflation to increase. Refugees did not make the NHS salary low. Refugees did not force Britain to leave the European Union. The government here in this country and some political parties with their pathetic policies and their support and backing of authoritarian leaders in the Middle East, they are the problem. The mass scapegoating of refugees and the mass gaslighting of the public is to be expected, when there are vastly more negative than positive stories about refugees on a daily basis. With the two extreme depictions of refugees, one, the faceless and the nameless people crossing the channel, and two, the refugee success story. They're an Olympic gold medalist, so they can stay. We forget too easily that refugees all around us, normal, interesting, diverse people embedded in our communities and our economies, and that add value to our society. The coverage in the media of refugee stories are victims or criminals, Garish said. There is no midpoint in between. We need to focus on the job, the history, the positive points of this man or woman in his or her homeland. Highlight that they were brilliant in their homeland, and they will do the same in this country. We need to deal with people proudly. Yes, uplift them, not demonize them. Both Garish and Shadir praised the Refugee Journalism Project for helping them to maintain their careers after resettling. The program runs workshops, mentoring, and media placements for refugees journalists tailored to their unique experience. Shahina, a distinguished journalist in Afghanistan, was considered a job dishwashing or dog walking to support her two children when she first moved over. But the Refugee Journalism Project helped me. It's very difficult for a journalist to throw away her pen. Both also spoke to Media Storm about the importance of hiring refugees as journalists. Too often the media lines of questioning puts refugees off from wanting to speak. But if refugees are invited to share their traumas, their experiences, we can begin to find workable solutions to the crisis, put on the shoulders of the people who have no other choice. Hire more refugee journalists and be patient with their language barrier, advised Garish. Train them, develop their skills, and you will get a lot back because we have an area of experience. No one in this country can write about Afghanistan better than Shahina, or about Egypt better than me, or even a correspondent who lived in Egypt or Afghanistan for many years. We are talking about industry diversity and inclusion. Okay, these topics are brilliant, but please do these topics on the ground. Like I said, guys, I recommend checking out their podcast to have a listen to it. It is a fascinating podcast to say. But no human is illegal is 100% true. They are human beings with emotions and feelings, with lives, just like you and I. And we need to show more compassion. You know, this term that we are supposed to be, we keep hearing this term, you know, we are a compassionate country. But then we also dehumanize them for just being refugees. What's happened to that compassion? What happened to, we should always look to help others? when we need it. What happened to that? What happened was that private donors, billionaires and millionaires want you to turn your anger and your frustration for all your everyday lives to all your problems at innocent refugees who are trying to make a better life for themselves, instead of looking at the so-called people with power who are changing things behind your back, who are literally taking money out of your wallet, and you think it's the person who's got absolutely nothing. You think that they are the problem, instead of the man that is, or the woman who is the millionaire and billionaire who is stealing money from you. You think that there's nothing to do with them, and you think all your problems are around immigration, are around refugees. It's time to have a real think about that. Honestly, have a real think about it. So what do you guys think? What do you guys make of this piece? That a person lost everything and we call it illegal migration. It's not fair. And I agree it's not fair. But why are you so insistent that it's not? Or maybe perhaps you strongly agree with me. Let me know your thoughts about all this and my thoughts that I put in as well in the comment section down below. If you found this video interesting, please hit the like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. Share it across social media to others and notify of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me in the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching. Hope to catch you all very, very soon.